Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We have breaking news. The government shutdown is set to go on after the Senate failed to pass two bills to fund the government. Let's bring in ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill for more. Jay, first the Democrat bill failed. Now the Republican bill failed. So where do they go from here?
Yeah, they didn't get the number of Democratic defections needed. Republicans didn't to pass this legislation that would have ended the government shutdown. This was, remember, a temporary funding measure that would have funded the government for 7 weeks. It's the exact same measure that the House of Representatives passed some weeks back, that the Senate failed on last night, although there were 3 Democratic defections when the Senate took this up last night. Those 3 voted for it again today. They voted yes with the bulk of Senate Republicans to pass this legislation, but they didn't get any more additional Democrats. We did see this kind of not fiery but noticeable gaggle, bipartisan gaggle of Senate Democrats and Republicans on the floor. We're not sure what they were talking about, but there were a few of the so-called Democratic swing votes that we've been watching in that group. And so it's unclear if there are any last-minute negotiations being done here. But this vote fails. It means the government shutdown will go on. Procedurally, it doesn't look like John Thune, the top Republican in the Senate, unless he does a kind of a last-minute procedural maneuver, can bring this vote up again today. And so the Senate is out tomorrow for the Yom Kippur Jewish holiday. They are back on Friday. And so the earliest you could see, as of right now, another vote to end this government shutdown will be Friday. It remains to be seen if there are more Senate Democratic defections at this hour. Right now, there are only those 3. But as the shutdown goes on, the impacts of the shutdown become more pronounced, and that could up the pressure on Senate Democrats. Right now, in large part in lockstep, Senate Democrats have said they're holding back their votes. They're not going to vote for this government funding mechanism unless they get a rollback of Medicaid cuts that were in that one big beautiful bill, President Trump's signature legislation that passed some months back, and an extension of Obamacare tax credits that are set to expire at the end of this year. And if they do expire come January 2026, would cause premiums for millions of Americans to skyrocket. Democrats believe they have the political momentum. They believe now is their moment to hold firm, to try to get these concessions out of President Trump and out of congressional Republicans. But we already saw some cracks, right? We saw those 3 Democrats voting with Republicans both today and last night to end this government shutdown. And so as this progresses, one thing to watch for, Diane, is do any other Senate Democrats join them?
Jay, is there any room for compromise here? Can they reach any kind of middle ground on these sticking points?
They could get some kind of an agreement, not down in writing on paper, but some kind of an agreement from Republican leadership to take up this Obamacare issue. We've heard from Democrats who say that may be enough to get some on board. They would need 8 Democrats in total voting to avert a shutdown, so plus those 3, 5 more. But it's unclear if that's going to be enough, that kind of verbal agreement. Anything else that's down on paper, down in legislation, would cause the government shutdown to go longer, because even if legislation was rewritten in the Senate that included these demands from Democrats or some version of these demands from Democrats, it would have to go back to the House, and the House right now is out for the rest of the week. That was a maneuver on the part of House Speaker Mike Johnson to send his members home to try to jam the Senate and force them to take up the bill that the House sent them.
All right, Jay O'Brien for us on Capitol Hill. Jay, thank you. And Elizabeth Schulze has more on what this shutdown means for families. Hi, Elizabeth. What are we preparing for here?
And so the big picture is this does inject a lot of uncertainty into the household finances for a lot of families. And when you think about it, for the bigger economy, too. So when we're looking at immediate impacts, one thing we could see starting today is up to 750,000 federal workers furloughed. What that means is that they are placed on leave, they're not working, and they're not paid. They will get paid retroactively once this shutdown ends, but in the meantime, they are furloughed. There are also then tens of thousands of other workers who are basically deemed essential. So think of TSA agents, air traffic controllers, Border Patrol agents. They will keep working, but also with no paychecks. Then there are those 2 million U.S. troops. One note on the military member pay, typically they are paid on the 1st and 15th of the month. Those paychecks for the 1st already went out, so those paychecks did come out today. So really now we're talking about the 15th being at risk for them. And of course, keep in mind that members of Congress Congress are all paid during this time. And then just when you're looking ahead and what does this look like going forward, there are a couple of other factors for families. National parks, as of now, are open, but you could see some staffing shortages there. We could also see the Smithsonian open until October 6th, but possible after that there could be lapse in funding. And then this WIC program, that gives nutrition assistance to a lot of 7 million moms and kids. That funding could run dry in 1 week. So as this goes on, you could start to see some bigger impacts too.
And where do you not see the impacts here? What's not going to be affected?
Important to tell people, Social Security checks still set to go out. That funding is mandatory, so those payments should still be going out on time. Student loans will still be going on time. And the U.S. Postal Service, that gets its funding separately, that'll still be running. So a lot of those essential services do keep going. But even at some of those agencies, there are furloughs. We're going to be really closely watching is, as this goes on, do you see some other side effects to some of their, not as mandatory of services? The other thing just to keep in mind for the bigger economy is, in the past, the economy has bounced back. As the government has reopened, people went back to work. But this does have an effect on the sentiment from businesses. Are they more worried about hiring? Are consumers a little more reluctant to spend? The longest shutdown we've ever had was back in 2018. It was under President Trump, 35 days. The economic cost to GDP for that was about $11 billion.
Wow. All right. Elizabeth Chelsea, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.